is to review with our accountants, SB and Company, the financial audit report for them to provide their findings on the school's financial and for us to hear any recommendations that they have, as well as if they're to have answer any questions of the board that will allow us to vote on the adoption of the financial statements and reports. Before I turn it over to SB and Company, which we have Tiana Nguyen and Jamie Washington, who will be leading the presentation. Want to open it up to any just preliminary questions. And also just want to say their presentation will be supported by Stuart and Bobby and Bill as well. And I and the Finance Committee will be gladly of help answer any questions. So if there are any preliminary questions, we're happy to answer, or otherwise I will turn it over to Tiana, the lead.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiana Nguyen, and I had the opportunity to serve as this year's engagement partner. I'm going to turn over to our engagement manager, Jamie Washington, and she is going to walk through the results of the June 30, 2025 audit.
Thank you, Tiana. So SB and Company was engaged to audit the June 30th, 2025 financial statements, as well as the single audit and data collection submission, complete the data collection submission. We also were engaged to prepare the federal Form 990. And within our financials, you'll also see some of the unaudited schedules, which are required by the DC Public Charter School Board. We also completed the ERISA 103A3C audit of the December 31st, 2024 Employee Benefit Plan and prepared the Form 5500s. I will let you know about any recommendations and observations noted during the audit process, and we are available for year-round consultation. So we're planning to issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements and on the compliance and financial reporting. Although we have identified a significant deficiency over financial reporting, we received full cooperation from management, and we issued an unmodified opinion on the ERISA audit for the employee benefit plan, and the 5500s were filed by October 15th, which was the 2025, which was the extended due date. Here we have our areas of audit emphasis. These are areas where we spend a lot of time as a team. So there are some of the things that we identified as potential risk areas. That's revenue recognition, including donor restrictions and whether those requirements have been satisfied, and then a list of other areas there. And then we also will complete the Form 990 for the year. Here you'll see our audit approach. We spend a lot of time at the onset of the audit looking at some of the risks, some of the changes within the industry, and we determine from there how to efficiently complete our audit. Then we move on to the assessment of the control environment. These are so that we can kind of understand the tone at the top. So you'll see here that we do have a couple of areas for improvement here. And that moves us on to the evaluation of the key processes, things like the treasury, financial reporting, expenditures, revenue, and information technology. We did note a few areas for improvement there. Current year recommendations are listed here. So these are just some of the review and reconciliation policies and procedures. And then we have the prior year recommendations. There were a few that were not implemented, but we do have implementations and some of the processes that are in progress. So for the employee benefit plan, we had a few recommendations this year, which are noted here, which brings us to our audit results. So does anyone have any questions on that brief overview before we go into the results? Okay. So there weren't many large changes year over year. You will see that cash increased quite a bit, and that's due to the ins and outs of the cash transactions throughout the year. The interest rate swap is just due to the value of the swap as compared to last year. And then you'll also see that accounts payable and accrued expenses increased, as well as accrued compensation and benefits. So that's just related to the timing of the payments. Then here you'll see the per pupil revenue has increased year over year. And then there was also a employee retention tax credit that was received this year, which is provided a large sum, around 2 million this year in revenue. And then the expenses only increased a little. And you'll see here that that increase was mostly related to some of the office expenses. Here's where we also have our financial statement analysis, so you can kind of see where the money is being used year over year. The largest revenue source is still the per pupil allocations, and the largest expense is still salaries, taxes, and benefits. Here we also show the liquidity ratio as well as the enrollment counts. So enrollment did increase for fiscal year 2025. We completed the single audit. We noted no findings for the financial statement, and we noted no federal award findings.
But in section 2, I did want to note that we did identify a significant deficiency over financial reporting.
Yes. And we are now able to submit or issue the single audit. So we have here that we plan to finalize by December 31st, but we are pretty much ready to go once approval is received. Any questions so far there? All right. So that
Sorry,
brings
this is more,
Yes.
are we gonna discuss the deficiency or?
Yep, we can
I
go
don't wanna
back.
interrupt. Yeah, whenever you think's the best time. I don't want to throw off the flow, but
Nope,
we
it
should
was,
spend
nope.
some time there.
You can go back, Jamie. So here, during the review of the financial statement close process, we thought that there was an overall lack of supervisory review or reconciliations performed in some of the key finance functions. Some of the accounts that were impacted by the lack of that review would be cash, which also includes some deposits or reconciling items with your third-party bill pay provider, as well as accounts receivable and loans payable. So here we are recommending that the school go back and revisit its accounting policies and procedures in order to have a well-documented financial statement close process. So how it is that management will validate the balances and review of transactions. I think there's also some opportunities to increase the knowledge around the public charter school board's reporting requirements. So many of the schedules that are required by DCPCSB require that the school have a good working knowledge of what those required disclosures are so that management can prepare those schedules. And then we ultimately did get what we needed, but ensuring that there is good internal maintenance of costs that are charged to federal programs.
Okay, so to be
yeah.
clear, is it's an oversight issue, meaning there weren't the proper review policies in place, not that there was a like a bad transaction or something was lost or unaccounted for. Is that correct?
I believe I can only answer the first question. And that question would be that answer would be correct. There was a lack of oversight on some of the accounting, which could lead to inaccurate or inappropriate transactions being recorded.
Understood. Okay.
So I guess my question, and always keeping in mind, respecting the firewall between operations and governance of the board. Carlos, do you have thoughts about how we partner with, and maybe this is not the venue for it, but I think we at least wanted to raise it, that how we partner with the school leadership, Bill Stewart and Bobby, to make sure that these gaps in policy, procedure, processes get filled.
Yeah, we've had in finance committee, the last finance committee discussion of some interim support for the school with the finances to help with some of the details needed to ensure that oversight it happens, but more in particular some of the call it manpower needed to make sure all these transactions are recorded properly and reviewed properly. So had discussions with Bobby about bringing in some extra support on an interim basis in that regard.
So then I guess I'd pivot to Bobby. So because the finding seems to be more than about a set of hands and more about policies and procedures, established processes.
Right.
And so what I think what we'd be looking for as the board is to make sure that there are policies and procedures that allow us to fill in this gap. So I understand hands to get the work done, but also processes, which is what this is asking for, that are documented in detail to the satisfaction for future audits.
Yeah, so and I see Kevin with his hand up. Do you want me to answer that first or go to Kevin?
I'd love to hear your answer.
Okay. Yeah, there needs to be more oversight and I mean that falls on me as a head of school. You know, looking at these more closely, like with Bill and Stewart. And you know, I put in place something like I know that, you know, Stewart is new, he did this audit. He was taking the lead on this audit. There were some things that he didn't know. And you know, but I put things in place like he's going to be part of the Alliance, the Charter School Alliance Finance Committee meeting. He went to his first one last week and he learned a lot. He's like, oh, okay. Putting together more like meetings with the public, with some of our member schools for DCI member schools, working more closely with our own finance. I know Carlos called like for a monthly meeting to make sure, you know, the oversight is a lot, looking at it a little bit closer. I know there's you know, governance and operations, but you know, working a little bit more closely with the finance committee. And then looking at our procedures, like really like with a fine tooth comb, really looking at it, it's like, okay, are we following best practices? So those things that, you know, fall on me. And I have to make sure that they're being done.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered.
I'm sorry. Once again, so Carlos addressed more hands, you addressed more learning. Well, what the finding had to do with documentation and policies and procedures. And so you kind of alluded to it at the end. So what I'm looking for is some guarantee that in addition to examining the existing policies and procedures, that we're building ones to meet the requirements for oversight. So kind of all those things. But once again, this talks to documentation as well as knowledge and that. So I just want to make sure all those things get addressed going forward.
So,
Yeah.
Anton and Kevin, I'll interject just quickly. Would the monthly meetings that as I told Bobby, I would like to have starting at the beginning of the year is to actually go through what are the steps they're doing internally for receiving data, inputting it holistically, their timing of doing that. When is Bobby meeting with the internal team to go through that before it comes to finance committee? So that is to help flush out, and then as well as finance committee meeting, for at least the first quarter, maybe even the second quarter, move our meetings to a monthly meeting to now bring, to help review some of those things to actually make sure the processes are actually getting put in place and established properly. I do think it's from just further discussions. I think there are policies and procedures, but with new staffing and what have you, and just making sure that those are being followed. And if there are going to be new policies because of new methodologies, you all give that latitude. We do need to have them documented on what they are, so that when we get to regular reporting and as well as audit, we're not seeing the deficiencies such as this.
Great. Thanks.
And so at the next, I think this piggybacks on all of this. So at the next time that we get together, should we expect to see some kind of a plan? Should we get a report from you all about some kind of plan for how you're going to address the pieces of the significant deficiency? Learning, policies and procedures. Is there a staffing need? Whatever those elements might be, how are you addressing each of these three observations? And if we need to get into any more detail on those observations, just so that we have a clear understanding of what specifically needs to be corrected, if we could get those extra details, that to me sounds like the easiest way for us to get a sense of what was a significant deficiency, what corrective measures have been put in place based on those 3-4 categories. Just more knowledge and understanding. Do we need an extra set of hands? And are there specific policies and procedures that need to be put in place? It would seem to me if we could have that at the next meeting or whenever is most appropriate for us, for you all to take the time, get those procedures in place, that would, I think, it sounds like that would address what's happening.
Yeah. And I think I can probably have it. I'm looking at the calendar. We meet again in 1 month. It's the holidays. I can probably put something together. I would like to maybe, maybe
I actually would say, Bobby, take the time to do it right. Don't rush to put something together. I mean, because I think I've been on boards where I've seen way worse audits than this.
Okay.
So,
and I know that SB and company is going to have recommendations for us
right.
at the end. They're going to have more recommendations more than this.
Right. So I
sure
feel like this is something I would just say, take your time, do it right, and then come back to us and let us know what's happening, and we can go from there.
To piggyback before I pivot to Stan, just so kind of what I'm hearing Kevin saying is that we're not asking for knee-jerk reactions to it. We're looking for a plan. And so start with a plan, and then what's secondary to the plan are the actions. So the plan would be the first step to present to the board. So I'm sorry, Stan. Thanks, Stan, for holding on.
Yeah, just a quick question. Are there any external deadlines relative to this information that we need to be mindful of as we are crafting our solutions?
I'll take that one. My recommendation would be to ensure that this is something that is implemented prior to your June 30, 26 close. So when we come back in and we as the independent auditors, when we come back for the next fiscal year's audit, one of the first things that we'll be assessing is the status of the prior year recommendations. And so as you're going through your closing process, using those, established policies and procedures, we'll be looking to see examples that reconciling cash transactions have been reviewed and documented. That for your loans payable account that you've reviewed and compared it against the year-end statements from the lender, things like that. So being able to see that management had the tools and processes in place to validate the closing balances prior to submitting the final reporting information over for audit.
All right, so everything that you've cited this year,
Mhm.
by our June closing meeting, you would want to see those policies and procedures in place to be able to answer those questions, which
And
gives us sort of
and
the
evidence that they occurred.
evidence in the curve, but it also helps to define what our window of opportunity is. So if you're saying it's basically 6 months, then to Kevin's point, we need to be attentive to it, but we don't need to necessarily rush to throw something together. All right, that we have until you come back in June to make sure that we have a tight set of protocols in place to fill those gaps. Is that fair?
Yes,
Can-
that
Go ahead,
answers the
Tina.
question in terms of what would be the regulatory kind of deadline. So it's not really a regulatory deadline, but the next time that this would be analyzed and then reported out would be at your June 30, 26.
Okay, thank you.
So Stan, I'll just tag on. With the monthlies, we want to start zeroing in on the process but also the results that are coming up to make sure before the June reporting, because SB and Company needs the data prior to, like 60 days to do their audit. So we really have more so call it a end of March for the school to
Okay.
make these adjustments and have the policies. And then the SB and companies will be reviewing that for their audit process. So just want to clarify that the June is when SB and company makes their report of what has happened. So we do need to have a clear focus on this for the first part of the year, which we've talked about in committee to make sure that occurs.
All right, so you're thinking March.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
And
I'm sorry, Bobby. The other thing I also want to make sure doesn't get lost, because I think there were one or two, hopefully no more than one or two items I think from the prior audit that still hadn't been addressed. So I'd like to make sure those things are also included in the plan. So we're not just focusing on the most current report card, but we're including all things that we need to correct that hadn't, according to the report, hadn't been addressed as of yet also.
Yes, we talked about that as well.
Bobby, I'm
And
sorry.
also, just to piggyback off Carlos, yeah, we don't want to wait till June, and we also have access to SB and Company to make sure that they can start looking at stuff in ahead of time, be like, okay, this is working well, this is not. We recommend this, we recommend that. So we do have access to SB and Company throughout the whole year,
Great.
and I intend on using them.
Great. Right. Thank you.
So for us, that really concludes our presentation. Throughout the audit, we have had periodic meetings and discussions, not only with management, but also with Carlos. We've also met with certain members of the finance committee. Definitely want to just thank everyone for, jumping in, rolling up your sleeves, and making sure that we had everything that we needed to get to this December 10th reporting due date. with that, I'll turn it back over to Carlos or to see if there are any additional questions for us.
I do think though, Tiana, correct me if I'm wrong, the financial position of the school still, your finding shows that it's still relatively solvent and in good position. It's as compared to other institutions, sounds like we are still, I would say, relatively a top tier organization as far as our finances go. Do you support that?
Yep. So we didn't have any issues around looking at the school's liquidity, ability to meet current obligations as they become due, as well as I do believe that your revenues still continue to exceed expenses, and that includes the fact that there are certain non-cash expenditures that are recorded for US GAAP purposes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Carlos, you want to lead us in turn? What do we need to vote on?
I think we need to vote on the acceptance of the audit report and the closing out of the school's financial statements for the 24-25 school year.
Okay. So make a proposal, as Carla has, to approve the audit report and the
Closeout of
and the closeout for the last school year. Is there a motion to do so?
I
So
motion.
moved.
So it's appropriately moved by Carlo. Is there a second?
Second.
Appropriately seconded by Kevin. Any discussion? Being none, we will move into a roll call vote. I'll ask the trustees to indicate their approval by saying aye or their rejection by saying nay. Starting with Carlos,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Stan,
Aye.
Morgan,
Aye.
Beatrice,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Kadeen,
Aye.
and Anton Smith is aye. The motion passes. We have an audit approved, audit report approved, and the closing of the year. I think that was the last bit of business for today, correct?
That is it.
Okay. Great. Then at this point, there being no additional business, I will put forth a proposal to adjourn this special December 8th session meeting of the Board of Trustees. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
So moved by Kevin. Appropriately moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Appropriately seconded by Amy. Any discussion? There being none, we will once again have a roll call vote asking trustees to indicate aye or nay related to the proposal to adjourn. Starting with Carlos,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Morgan,
Aye.
Beatrice,
Aye.
Amy,
Aye.
Kadeen,
Aye.
and Anton Smith is aye. The motion passes and the meeting is adjourned. I thank all the trustees for their time and attention to this really important matter. Look forward to seeing you guys in 4 weeks or something, Bobby said.
think January 11th, maybe. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Let me
great.
make sure.
Yep.
January
But
10th.
it's at the bottom of the agenda of the next meeting. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.
Take care, everyone.
Holidays.
Bye.
We can stop the
Aye.
recording.
No.
Yep.